The battlefield's in chaos. The sky, it is split with the magic that is being fired off. The ground's trembling under the weight of all the attacks that are launched by the Clover Kingdom's Magic Knights and Lucius Paladin army. And the fate of the Clover Kingdom, it is hanging on by a thread. Yuno, the last wall standing between the rogue Wizard King Lucius and total destruction, fights alone with everything that he has, bravely using Asta's own anti-magic and his own wind and star magic, knowing that every second that he holds out is another heartbeat for Asta to recover. Across the kingdom, warriors and mages, friends and rivals, and even former returning enemies, they all throw themselves into the fray, each one answering the unspoken call to protect the Clover Kingdom, protect the home of Asta, and protect humanity as they know it. And Mimosa, as her magic works desperately to heal him, the question that burns in everyone's mind as they fight: will Asta return in time to turn the tide in battle, or does he return too late? Join me in today's newest Anime Explained review for chapters 381, 82, and 83 of Black Clover, because we have a lot to unpack in the chapters that feel like they might be the beginning of the end for Lucius' war against the Clover Kingdom, because it does feel like the end is in sight. So we open up the chapter with Finral taking note of how much of a giga chat that Yuno is using Asta's magic, his anti-magic, and he likely isn't the only one, given that everyone in the kingdom is falling to battle. Asta might be gone, but Yuno the Prodigy is now their last hope for victory, and it's something that even Lucius is aware of, because Yuno alone had previously shown he was a bad matchup given the hacks he has with star magic, but adding someone as skilled as Yuno with anti-magic, it opens up the door for Lucius to be in a world for trouble. But when Yuno begins swinging that big sword around, we get a reminder of just how special Asta is. The moment Yuno tries to swing that sword around to capitalize on closing in on Lucius with this immense speed that he has, the weight of that sword quickly becomes noticeable for him, and it leads to Yuno outright saying he can't believe Asta spent all these years lugging around a sword that was this heavy, which is something that we've seen constant and consistent ever since early Black Clover, when Julius remarked at how heavy Asta's sword was as well. This was a nice little throwback for Yuno, and it's also a nice drawback for Yuno, because even though we know it makes sense given the Witch Queen's word in the past opened the door for Yuno to use the sword because he has the elf spirit, to see that Yuno isn't automatically a beast with this sword and has to make the extra effort given the weight of the sword itself is a nice trade-off. But given this is Yuno, as a reader, you know, no pun intended, that this will be only a short setback. And sure enough, as we see later, Yuno finds a way to make the best out of a situation as he's fighting Lucius. He's one step ahead. However, as Yuno begins his counter-strike, launching powerful anti-magic attacks, Lucius uses his speed advantage and Yuno's lack of ability to read transparency magic to try to get the drop on him by touching him from behind in the one spot that Yuno doesn't have anti-magic protecting him, so that he can use soul magic on him. But Yuno's one step ahead and uses Black Netherland, which is the anti-magic version of Netherland, to limit what Lucius can do by essentially erasing his magic power. And this causes Lucius to take a different approach. Yuno has the right combination of hacks to make it difficult for him, so he's going to try to use a war of attrition to try to wear Yuno down until the anti-magic leaves his body and leaves him vulnerable for attack, which is a smart way to go about it. This is when we jump over to Noelle, and she's in a state of panic as her mother Acier declares that she's ready for their next fight, and Noelle states that she doesn't have enough power left to fight anymore, which makes sense given how much it took out of her and her siblings just to bring down their mother last time. But before Acier can move in for the final blow, Mereoleona storms onto the battlefield, declaring that this battle will be hers to take on, which I don't think any of us are complaining about, since it gives us another dream matchup. We went from Noelle versus Acier to Mereoleona versus Acier, and as a fan of all four of these characters, or all three of these characters, I'm in heaven right now with how this is playing out, especially if Noelle leaving the battlefield means that we get the eventual team up of Noelle, Asta, and Yuno against Lucius, since Noelle is the only one out the trio who's not mixed up with Lucius yet. Meanwhile, Mimosa is also in a state of panic because the extent of Asta's injuries, they're greater than she can currently afford to heal on her mana levels being where they are, and this leads to the Magic Knights, who she was also healing, declared that they saw the same battle that she did, and they know that Asta needs to be Mimosa's top priority, because if Asta goes down, the Clover Kingdom falls, which is both selfless, but it also shows just how far Asta's come. He went from being the black sheep of the kingdom, since he didn't have magic, to now to all these beings who can use magic know that the boy everyone once looked down upon is now their only hope, which is in a very subtle way Tabata showing us that when it comes to getting the acknowledgement of those in the kingdom, including his peers, Asta has it, which is one more box being checked off to have the boy that grew up without magic be the one that becomes the next Wizard King. However, not to be left out is Moris, who shows up ready to crash the party, but before he can lay a hand on Asta, various wizards from the Diamond Kingdom, including Asta's former rival Moris, they show up ready to defend him, showing us that Asta's acknowledgement, it extends beyond just the Clover Kingdom, but into other kingdoms as well, making this one of the first of many former rivals turned friends who return to the battlefield in what appears to be a final stand. Now, chapter 382 takes this story up another notch here, because this quickly becomes the scene from Avengers Endgame remade for Black Clover, but instead of Avengers popping out of portals, we see several of Asta's former rivals, both domestic and foreign, showing up to show their hand in battle to buy Mimosa time to heal Asta. We open up with Mimosa being concerned as Fonzel declares that they will protect the Clover Kingdom and battle Moris. This leads to a rather interesting exchange where Moris is told that he used to toy around with human life, but he's now in a battle situation where those he once looked down upon are rising up against him, basically calling him a relic of the past. And we see Fermina, the host of the Earth Spirit, unleash her power for the fight, which is a big deal given we know how cracked the spirits are, from the fire spirit to the water spirit to the wind spirit. The battle, it kicks off right away with the Diamond Kingdom battling Moris and giving Mimosa cover to work on Asta. And as the battle begins to intensify, we see Millie Maxwell and others from the Magical Tool Research Lab brought into the picture, including Sally, who declares her new weapon she made can mess up the magic circuits, causing the magic to be able to be unused for the first 5 seconds each time that it's hit inside of a target, which in a battle situation, 5 seconds, it is a lifetime given how fast characters are in Black Clover. But even more interesting is that this entire scene just made the Black Clover movie canon to the series, which is a mega fan of that movie. I'm very excited about it. Even though the Japanese don't care about canon the way that we do in the West, everything's canon to them. Just knowing the manga basically acknowledged the events of the movie and that they transpired in the timeline, that's a big W in my book. Now, the plan in this fight is to stop magic from being used for 5 seconds and then use soul corpse magic to trap the souls, which is a high IQ move. And in order to assist in this, we see the elves led by Patry show up on the battlefield to get their hands dirty in the various battles that are occurring. An acknowledgement that Asta's greatness, it doesn't just extend from the Clover Kingdom to the wizards in other kingdoms, but also to other races as well. Another feather in the cap of our future Wizard King. And the craziest part of it all, the guy is knocked out, so he's not even aware that this is going on. This brings us to chapter 383, where our slumbering hero Asta makes his heroic return to the fight just as Yuno begins to lose ground in the battle against Lucius. The battle with Lucius and Yuno is in heavy gear, just like you'd expect. These two, they have powerful, speedy attacks. They're blitzing across the battlefield, launching heavy powered attacks, with Yuno going on the offensive and then going on to the defensive to block one of Lucius' monster attacks, where he launches a giant light sword at him and Yuno blocks it using an anti-magic shield, and then he uses an offensive attack that pierces the heavens literally as it causes the sky to split. the power being dumped out by these two is enough that had this battle not been taking place in the air, this might have been a situation where there might not have been a Clover Kingdom capital left if these two are using the same levels of DC and they didn't limit the AoE of their attacks, which, given their skill level, likely would have been the case that they could have limited it. But my god, the level of power being shown right now is out of this world, and it just shows that having this fight take place in the air, so high up in the air, was a brilliant move, Tabata, and this is gonna look amazing when it is animated. In the time after the exchange, Yuno makes a very astute observation. He says that Lucius is scared of Asta, and he points out that all in the timelines that Lucius saw, he probably didn't see Asta making his former enemy stronger, which we know is the effect that Asta has on those who are friend or former foe that he comes into contact with. Lucius even spoke about it in the past, where he stated that Noelle shouldn't have been this strong. She should have been fodder. And even Yuno, someone who he knew was powerful, even Yuno had surpassed his expectations, and he blamed Asta for that. Yet, never one to lose his cool fully, Lucius stays in full villain mode, and in his monologue he declares that Yuno will soon run out of anti-magic, so none of this matters, declaring that none of what Yuno said is going to apply, which is our sign that he's still planning to use soul magic on Yuno when the time comes. However, on the other side of the battlefield is Mimosa is tending to Asta as all the chaos is spilling out. Longris and Leopold finally show up, with that bum Leopold finally showing up after being gone for 4 million chapters, and he's stronger than ever before, maintaining mana method and cloaking himself from head to toe, standing in the full face of adversity as the defeated paladins once again are rising up for more action. Yet Asta's former rivals, they all say that they got stronger, and they know that Asta's gotten stronger as well, and they call on him to return to the battlefield once he's recovered. And this, my friends, is the most dangerous moment for Lucius that he doesn't even realize, because this is the moment where the seeds are being planted for a shonen trope that is as old as Shonen Jump itself, which is the rivalry effect. And Asta is having all of this on his rivals on the battlefield. It means that this next mental amp that Asta gets when he's fighting, knowing that they're on the battlefield too, is going to be beastly, but in order for him to fully benefit from it, he's going to have to be healed. And unfortunately for him, Mimosa's running out of magic. However, Finral and Charmy, they show up clutch. They have food that Charmy produced in order to refill Mimosa's mana, and this causes Mimosa to regain enough strength to use ultimate magic to heal Asta, who quickly cuts down a paladin, and in typical Asta fashion, he's screaming he wants that rematch with Lucius. While the whole set of chapters were basically could be summed up as building up to the moment where Asta will return to the battlefield, I think we all can agree that this is the moment that should put to rest any doubts about whether or not Asta will become Wizard King, because not only are former enemies of the Clover Kingdom showing up to support the kingdom, but people around the kingdom are going to see that these are people that are coming because of Asta. It's a very important lesson that being acknowledged by people is important for any leader, whether it be you at your job if you're a manager, or even if you're a politician leading your community, even if you're someone on, say, the PTA, or in Asta's case, you're an aspiring leader who wants to become Wizard King. Power means nothing if the people who are beneath you don't respect you, because if they don't respect you enough to lift you up, your entire leadership is resting on a foundation that will eventually crumble. And that's why making the Wizard King movie canon to the manga is so huge, because of the lessons the former Wizard Kings left for Asta. Which, to learn what I mean, you'll want to click here on the left side of the video of the screen to watch the video that goes into extensive detail about that, or you can click here to check out other videos from Anime Explained.